Cool. So what I want to talk about today is Canary's analytics, where we started out and kind of how we ended up working with Snowplow and that kind of journey, and how we're using it today to kind of funnel all our analytics into from the mobile applications, and then the insights we're drawing from it. So, what do I point this at? Okay, this could be broken. All right. So first off, what is Canary? So for those of you who are not familiar, Canary is a smart home security device. So what it's doing is it's taking a look at traditional smart home security like ADT and putting a modern feel to the whole thing. So you have a hardware device as well as a lot of cloud software and mobile apps and web applications. So the idea behind this device is it keeps an eye on your home. It runs intelligent computer vision, and it only alerts you when there's something awry in your home that you should be alerted about. It also has nice other features such as home health alerts, like temperature, humidity, and air quality. You can set alerting around that, and you can get those alerts as well. And yeah, so there's obviously a lot of software here. We have our device, and then we've got our web services, and we can dig into that in a second. And then this is our first generation product, which we launched about 18 months ago. And as of last week, we just announced Canary Flex, which this little guy in the back. It's a response to a lot of requests from our customers that say, this is great, it works in my house, but I've got a garage, I've got a garden, I need something that's portable, runs on batteries, and it's also waterproof. So you can put this out in your garden, you can monitor that whole other part. And also it's got this really flexible mount. The original Canary just will stand straight up, but this thing you can hang on the roof, you can put it anywhere, and it gets multi-month battery life. So you can really put this thing in your garden, leave it there, and it'll work. This way, okay. So how does it all work? So behind the scenes, we've obviously a lot of web services running. Used a lot of Python initially. We're moving a lot towards Scala as we scale. Use a bit of Node.js for web services. So that powers our video ingestion, which we get, tons of video a second. I think it's 11 years of video we get a day. So that has to be all ingested, processed. Then we have lots of device stats, like how our device is performing in the field, as well as user-facing values, such as all the home health stuff that we've got to learn on. Then we have 2 native apps on mobile, iOS and Android, written in Objective-C and Java. And then we also have C++ running our embedded devices. So when I joined 2 years ago, we were running, like most small companies do, Google Analytics. It's kind of the de facto. You install the tracker, you get your web app, and it works pretty well. And it was answering a lot of questions, like how many active users do we have? Most POs can operate the Google Analytics web app pretty well. And good trackers on all platforms, iOS, Android, web, pre-built dashboards, and really easy to use. And it's free, but everyone probably knows that it's like free to a point, and then there's the paid tier, which is pretty expensive. Then the cons of using Google Analytics, which we come up against a lot. So sampling is the big thing. You run a report, you start to dive deep, and then you get this little pop-up which says, for us, at our scale, it's like 0.4% of our sessions is what our analytics are based off, which if you tell that to anyone, they'll think you're crazy. So this was a big problem for us. And then another one was joining to other data sources. So our mobile apps are creating events, that's great. But I can't answer the question, like, I generated 400 video entries for this user. How many did they actually watch? I need to be able to join your mobile data and your actual event data that's coming from our devices. Because we have machine users that are our devices, and we have our actual users. And with Google Analytics, there are ways of exporting. And on the Pro plan, you can do some things, but it's not designed for that use case. It's really designed for, like...
Why do you care that somebody watched the video that's your capturing?
Well...
That they're a better customer?
Well, I want people to watch the videos that we generate, because we pay a lot of money to store that video, to run computer vision on that video. If I find out that on X amount of users, 70% of the video is not being watched, 70% of my cost is essentially just vaporized. So it's really a metric we want to increase. Engagement is a big part of our platform. And if we find that we're creating too many video entries, then we need to look at our computer vision. Is it filtering out enough stuff? Because the user is no longer watching this video. And that's why, for that exact use case, it's really important for us. because otherwise we can optimize the system a lot better. So joining to other data sources, and on that same point, when you get to a certain scale, I remember when we started out here, a lot of things were getting written to MySQL. Like a lot of places, put it in there, it's convenient, but then you hit a certain scale and relational databases don't make sense anymore. So you start to look at things like Dynamo, Cassandra, you've got time series stuff, and then even though it's great for operations, the analyst has got the problem of how do I get to the Dynamo data, how to make it queryable. So you hit these problems. And then the final bit in Google Analytics is the queries. Like what Google Analytics defines as an active user may not be what we define as an active user. It might just be they opened the app yesterday, but for us, it might also mean they open the app and they have a device that's plugged in and on. So us being able to configure what an active user is quite important. And you'll find also product owners, they say, okay, cool, that's great, but I want to add this parameter. You've really no power there. So we hit a bit of a roadblock here, and then we started to look at alternatives. So there's a lot out there, as you all know. It's a huge industry. You have Mixpanel, you have Segment, you have Kissmetrics, Keen.io. I mean, there are a lot out there. Common issues with us at the scale we were at when we were trying to look at other vendors was it was going to be very expensive, especially coming from the fact that Google Analytics was free, even with its limitations. So at the time, I think we were doing 5 million mobile events a day. And that would be way beyond most of the normal plans. So you're talking about a custom integration. And then you get to this point of, should we track this metric because it's costing us X extra a month? And like, no one wants to do that. Where you're like, don't track things because it costs you more. So pricing was a big issue. Another thing that was a real bonus to Snowplow was data security. Everything that we're ingesting from Snowplow, it's comes into our cloud, whereas with Mixpanel and stuff, we have to send it to their cloud. So that's obviously, as you scale, it's a bit of an issue. And there's volume, and then, you know, with a lot of these platforms, you are paying for a web app on top. You are paying for a dashboarding element that you may not want. Like, we want to access the data as opposed to your dashboarding solution that you've built. So that's where we came upon Snowplow. You know, it's great in a lot of ways for what we're looking to do. We have, the pricing is really good. We're paying for the machines, we're paying for the storage, S3, Redshift. It's all just as we use it. They're auto-scaling, so the more events we send, we're paying for just what we need. There's data security, it's all in our infrastructure, it's in our S3, it's in our Redshift, never leaves, so there's really not a compliance issue. The volume is handled by Snowplow. We use their managed service, so they're managing our pipelines, they make sure it doesn't go down. We've been with them, could be 6 months maybe at this stage, and we've had no problems. It's always, our events have come in. As we've scaled, there's been delays as we run the pipelines more during the day, but so far it's just worked, you know. And then when it comes to dashboarding, like, we're not paying Snowplow for any nice features that their web developers are building. We're getting access to data, it sits in Redshift, and then we have another decision to make, which is where Looker and Mode Analytics and stuff comes in, which is, I have all this data, what do I want to do with it? Who's got the best dashboarding features? And now I'm paying someone just for those features, which I think is great. And then a bonus, the code is open source. If we find any issues, we can modify the code. We can help the community by pushing back, you know? Cool, so that got us to Snowplow. We went live with that. And then when it came to the type of data we were sending, we went with structured events, which is basically like their standard event type if you're just moving over and you're unfamiliar with the platform. Great thing is it's an easy migration path. Inside of our trackers, we were just started to fork the data to Google Analytics and Snowplow. Has the same thing, category action, label property value, and it works really well. And this got us to a certain point, and then we started to dive in, and one of the problems we have with this type of event is that, you know, if you're using the label as the primary key, we have a lot of different resources within our app that could be the primary key at that point. So the analyst, in a lot of cases, the label could be an entry ID, but in other cases it's the location ID or the device ID, because we have a lot of these resources that get used within the app. So we ended up just quite recently moving beyond the structured event and into custom events. So here's some screenshots for Watch Live screen. So what's happening here is the user is interacting with the device ID. So in this case, primary key is device ID. In the middle, that's an entry. So it actually has an entry ID, a resource associated with it. And over here, it's got a location. But in some of these cases, like I'm watching live in this device, that device is also within a location. So there's actually a location ID and a device ID here. So with the structured event model, it really is quite limited. So we just went on and decided to make a custom model, which is on the entry ID, I can be interacting with a device, which is this device here, an entry, which is the entry, and overall it's within a location. So I have actually 3 fields that I want to track. So we ended up going towards this type of a schema. I don't know if you guys use the Igloo system where you define a schema. It's versioned by default. So you say, okay, here we're going to start with this. This is our 100 event type. But then if I want to add something else that I decide up the road, we want to add something, it's versioned by default. My old trackers will send to this. Keeps coming in, my new trackers know about the 101 schema. So we found this really useful. And this is something we designed, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And it's our first crack at our own event model. And the really good thing here is, if I'm interacting with an entry, toss in the ID. If not, don't. But if I want to know, as an analyst, a really simple query, show me the amount of entries that have been interacted with at all. It's a very simple query because every single event's got an entry ID. So I'm no longer going on this type of event. The action is this type. So this has been working really well for us. And we found the Igloo system really good to work with. You've got complete control over versioning all your schema and stuff. And that basically takes us through Canary's kind of path from, Google Analytics into Snowplow and then customizing Snowplow for our use case and how it's worked out for us. Cool. Any questions?
So this is a SQL runner or any of the how do you monitor your consumers?
So we haven't started using SQL Runner yet. We actually spoke with the guys about it today. So right now, at the volume we're at, and like how recently it's in all our production apps, our event table is fine to run off. But in the longer term, like that table that I showed you right there, it may not be all of our Canary events. We might start to categorize them. So what is the category there would end up being its own table. And it's something that me and Ziggy, our data scientists, we're talking to the guys about today. What we're doing right now is we'll put it all in another table. So we're going to have, the atomic events table. We're going to have Canary's mobile event table. And then they'll both be as big as each other we have a mobile context as well. But basically, they're going to grow until the point when the queries get slow. And then we'll look at, okay, what's the categorization on these clips? So say all the entries, one goes to their own table. And then we'll make that jump. But for now, it made sense to just get the data in, QA'd. We have all the things we need to migrate to another system. You know what I mean? So we haven't actually used SQL Runner yet, to answer your question. Anything else?
What are you excited about doing next?
Well, so the new event, take care. The new event goes to production on Android tomorrow. So we have it in our beta and beta plus, which is our new product and our existing product. We have 2 beta programs. So you've QA'd all the events, they're coming in great. And now we're migrating over to this new event. And then the real big one for us is we have our RDS, relational data, customer location device, which is your low table counts that need that relational structure. Then you've got your NoSQL stuff like DynamoDB, which you use for video metadata. So really the big question is how many seconds of video are going to be watched and by which users? And questions around our monetization strategies. Are users who pay me money watching more video than users who not? And we can finally start to join those 2 things together and answer those questions. So for us, it's we're really at the start of seeing all this in action. Yeah.
You run variance tests between what GA says versus what Snowplow has basically indicated in terms of what data is more accurate, or have you done that intense testing between the two, just in case someone pulls a report when they use GA data and now Snowplow is saying something different? What's the source of truth?
That's pretty interesting. We haven't done much on that. We're kind of forwarding stuff to GA as a backup because we have 2 years of data in there. But it would be interesting to know what their active user really means underneath the hood. But I would kind of err on the side of trusting Snowplow because I have the data, And already the initial reports we're making, we've already changed our definition of active user. Because for us, if you download the app and you haven't got a device and you start using it, it's really not much use to us. So our definition of active user has gotten a lot more complicated, but it makes sense for our unique business case. It's not just the Facebook app. We do have a hardware element, so we want to make sure that the device is plugged in as well, So yeah, straight away we've changed our version of active user, but I haven't done much on what they say is true and what we say is true.
We've done it. Yeah, we did that when we were adopting Snowplow. We did that exact thing for very targeted cases where we had stuff in our database that we could triangulate. Stuff in our orders table, stuff in GA, stuff in Snowplow, and that allowed us to make sure that everything was safe.
And what was the result? Was it?
For things like orders, where it's like a very specific thing that is very well defined, everything was sort of spot on as your code. Things where we're looking at sessions and whatnot, it got a little fuzzier because the definition of the session is different. Who it qualifies as a user is a little bit different. So there we were just looking for, I think our target was within 5%. 5%.
Not too bad. Cool. Anyone else?
Have you used any of the learnings from Snowplow to power any marketing initiatives?
Marketing, not yet. Actually, this was moving to Snowplow was very engineering driven. So I think marketing are very comfortable with Google Analytics. So I think it'll be as we grow our data science bit of the business, it'll become more widespread throughout the organization. Like we're not in our web app yet, so that's our marketing website. So I think as we kind of get Reveal on board, we'll do that. But the problem is that like with our current tool set of using Mode Analytics, SQL is a requirement for you to be able to gather insights, and that's not something that is widespread throughout the company. So there's obviously other alternatives like Looker that allow other people to use data like Snowplow in like a GUI fashion. So we'll try and gain a lot of value from like engineering and like what's our next feature we're going to work on, and then I guess marketing, hopefully get them involved as well.
Any other questions?
Cool. Thanks everyone.